Friends, it's been a long time since the last video, and I was learning the new stuff. So during this time, and today I'm going to show you a video about what I've learned recently. So today I'm going to uh, use React to build a form in the Google Sheet. So basically I'm going to build a form with Google Apps Script and the React. So if you don't know React, so you may need to learn this if you like to build the front end web applications. So it is a very popular library. So I'm also I was learning this, and I'm planning to learn this stuff, and I found it is very interesting and very useful for us to build the user interface in the web application. So I just started to learn it. So there is a lot of videos on YouTube uh, about the React, how to start to learn the React. So here is a web page. You go to the reactjs.org and all the documentations, and they have the beginning tutorials and all the API reference. You can find it here. So today, first I'd like to show you the product I have built in the Google Apps Script. So here I have a Google spreadsheet, and here I have a menu called script, and I have a function here to open the form I have built in this spreadsheet. It opens the sidebar and bring me to the Google form. Not a Google form, it's a customized form built with Google Apps Script and React. Okay, so here's a form here, and as you can see here, we have a header for this form, and we also have a description for the form, and we have some input here for the first name, last name, email, and password. And we also have a text area for the comments, and finally we have a submit button here. So let's try to do a submit here. So let's try the first name. Okay, my name, last name, email, password, and just do test. Comments also for test, comment. Okay, so now let's try to submit. And as you can see here, we have a message here, and I'm not sure if you just catch that. So once you click the submit button, it will going to show you a message like submitting the submitting message, and once the submit is done, and it will show you this message success, and all the input are cleared. And if you go back to the spreadsheet, yes, you should be able to see the result here, and here you will have the timestamp, and you will have an ID. So for this ID, I generated in the app script. I found a lot of people are asking for this ID. Since I have two previous videos about how to add this ID in Google Form, because in the Google Form it doesn't provide this ID capabilities to the end users, so you have to do the custom script to add this ID to your form. So if you need to use this, and I think I have a function in the script to generate this ID, so you can copy the function and use it in your Google form for this ID. So here I have an ID like this ID have a prefix like UID dash, and the ID length will be 5 digit. So you can also customize this in the script, and here you get the first name, last name, email, password, and comments from the form. Okay, all the information you can get, and here we also have a function to reset the UID. So basically, you're going to reset the ID. Now, current ID is 4. So since you can see here, the UID is 3. The 3 is already used, and the next ID is 4. So you'd like to reset the ID. The ID will be start from 1. So let's do yes. So we reset the form, and we can remove the old data, and we can try to resubmit. Okay, so let's try test again. Test. Let's do a resubmit and submitting and success. Okay, now we have a form reset, and the UID now starts from 1. Okay, and if you try to submit a new one, let's say test 2, submitting, success. Okay, now you have the UID here, and this is your second submission from the form. All right, so basically that's all the functions in this form, and I will explain you the code about how to build this with AppScript and React, and you can do some modifications. So it will help you to, if you are interested, and it's not only about the Google Apps Script, so you need to learn something more. So we are always learning. So I hope you are interested in React. Okay, so let's go to the script. So first of all, if I'm going to share you a copy of this file. So please make a copy of my file if you are trying to use it. So you can make a copy. I will share you a link, so you're going to directly so you can make a copy of this file. I just make a copy of this file, and I'm going to share the copy to you guys. So let's rename it for YouTube, and okay, close the old one. Now we should have 2 files in this folder. So this one. Okay, this one I'm going to share with you, so you can make a copy of it. So once you copied my file, first thing you need to do, just normal settings you need to do. So let's go to Tools, Script Editor. So all the code will also be copied to the file you just copied from mine. Okay, all the codes are here. So first thing you need to do, you need to run this open function. Actually, any of these functions you can run it, and then we're going to ask for authorization. Since this is the first time to run this new file, okay, so you just review the permissions and choose your account. If you cannot see it, you should use another account or log in with your Google account. Advanced, and go to the APIs we are using in this project, and allow it to use. All right. So this is first thing. We just run this open function on open function. So this on open function, we're going to build the menu for us. It's going to build the script menu and add 2 functions to this menu. So now you should be able to see 2 functions here. And then another next step we need to do, we need to publish this as a web application. Okay, and you can decide the configurations here. So here I choose myself as who should execute the app. Okay, so and I also choose anyone. Everybody can access this app. Okay, let's do an update, and we should be able to have this URL here, and you don't need to remember this URL because we already built a function here to open the form. Okay, if I click the open form now, it opens the sidebar here, and it brings me to this form. Okay, now we have this, and we should remove this, since this is the data is copied from the old file. I just remove this, and now we can try some test. Let's say the password is 111 as a comment is a test comment from the new file. Let's try to submit this. So the submitting, and when this is submitting, as you can see here, this button is disabled, so you cannot click it until the submission is done. Something is wrong. I don't know. It should work. Let's try to see if there is anything wrong. Let's go to the console. Okay, it's finally success. Maybe the network issue. I should be able to see the result here. Let's try to refresh this page. Okay, now we saw the result. It takes a while because the network maybe is not very good. At least it's working, and the ID starts from 1. Okay, so after your test, if you are trying to use it, you can reset the ID with this function here. And let's go to the code, and let me explain the code to you. So before we review the code, I'd like to introduce something in the React. So basically in React, I'm using these libraries here. As you can see here, we have the React production mini JS, and we also have the React DOM production mini JS. So both libraries are using in our project. So, and you also can follow these instructions here. I'm using add React to our website. So if you go to this link, they have tutorials for how to add this to your website, and you can review these instructions. It's very detailed, and so basically there is let me find the code here. Where is the code? Okay, so here is, for example, in the source code, I think it's on GitHub. All right. So here, all the code is here, and as you can see here, in your HTML header, you can link the libraries provided from React, and the code in JS. All the code are here. Basically here, in this example, it's very simple example. They just build a button, a button class, and just create a class function, just a button UI in this project. So because this is just a start tutorial for the beginners, and just explain all the stuff, all the basic stuff I think you need to use in your project. And I just use this structure, and I build more components like buttons, input, text area, and so just something like that. And let me show you the code. So if you go to the project tree here, I have a file called GS. So all the Google Apps script are in this file. And we also have index.html. So here, as you can see, we have the links. We have linked the script to the React and both libraries, React and the React DOM. And we also include our JavaScript file here. So we have a function to include the JS file. And for the style sheet, we also include the CSS file to our HTML file. So here we also so once we include this file, you need to have a file like css.html and js.html. So this is a little bit different from the project you're building. Normally you're building a web application, you need to have a file like main.css or main.js. But in Google Apps Script, you need to, because we only have so we have a script file and HTML file. So you have to use HTML file, and if we go to the script file here, you should be able to see a tag here. So we use this tag in this HTML file. So all the code in the between the script tag will be JavaScript. And if you go to the CSS HTML file, so all the code between this style sheet will be CSS code. So that's how we manage files in our project, and it is the same way. So if you copy all the CSS code and put it here, it just works the same. And this is also for the script, you also can copy the script in this file, but you will make this file is very long, very big file. So if your project is too complicated, you should be able to, you'd better to try this. So you separate all the files. So put all the script in one file and your styles in one file. So it's just optimized file management. And the last one is a very simple script. So this file just used to build this open form function. So here, as you can see, we only have a script in this HTML file. So it's named open form, and here, once we load this HTML file, so it's going to ask the browser to open this URL. So this URL is basically the URL here. So once you run this script app get service get URL, you're going to get this URL for you. So the browser, we're going to open this URL, and once we open the URL, we are going to ask the script to close the sidebar or the dialog. So if we go back to this code.js here, we have this open form function here. As you can see here, we build a user interface with this HTML service. So this template, this user interface is going to build from this open form, and this title will be opening the form. So, and we're going to tell the spreadsheet UI to show the sidebar. And if we run this onOpen function, let me show you. onOpen function here, so I'm going to show the sidebar. It's opening the form, and it will bring you the script, the form URL here. So this is a very handy tool for us to open the URLs from the spreadsheet directly. So you can try other URLs. You just need to replace. Let me show you. Replace the URL. So you just need to replace this URL. You can replace this URL with any URL you'd like to open in your spreadsheet. Okay. So all this is all the functions about this file. And then we go back to this GS file. And in this include, it's just to include the files, so it just include the JS file and the CSS file to the index HTML. Okay. And for this do get function, so this is a must-have function for web application, and it basically is going to render the index HTML, so all the content, because in this index HTML we have CSS, we have the libraries JavaScript, and we also have our own JavaScript, and we also have a div for the application, have an ID with the ID root. So just that simple. And if go back to here, so we set the title for this HTML, and you can see here this is the title from JS and React, and we also have a tag here. So this is for the responsive layout. So if we try to inspect this website, if we try to use responsive view, so let's try to iPhone X. So as you can see here, we have a 100% width here. Okay, you have to add this viewport, add this meta tag here in AppScript if you are trying to build this responsive layout in your application. Finally, we're going to return this HTML, so we can see it here. Okay, this do get function here, and here is a function to generate a unique ID. So for this unique ID, we have a variable, parameters, prefix, and we'll have a length of the digit. So you can modify this. So all the code are here to generate a UID. Basically, I'm using the properties service to, so I store the ID in the script properties. If we go to project properties, script properties, as you can see here, we have ID here. Currently, the ID is true because we have one items in here. So you can delete it. So we're going to, if you delete it, you're going to reset. So anyway, you can change it here, or you can try to run this function to reset the ID. Okay. So I'm not going to explain this. It is very simple. If you read the code, you will can very quickly. So, and here's the function to save the response. So once we have the response from this form, I'm going to save the response to our spreadsheet. So as you can see here, we get the sheet by name, so responses. So if you modify the name of this sheet, you also need to update the name here. So, or the script cannot find the spreadsheet, and I'm going to bring you an error. Okay, here is a header. So if you have more items, you need to update this header. So this is header here, and we're going to set the header to the spreadsheet every time, because somebody may update or change the header manually, and we just generate a new ID. So we use this generate ID UID function. We just define it here, and we'd like to use this UID prefix, and we'll have 5 digits. So if you need to have another kind of prefix, you can modify it here. And if you don't need to prefix, you just leave it as an empty string. So this is the length. And for the content, we have a new date for the timestamp, and for the ID, CUID, and the form data here. And finally, we just append the data to the spreadsheet. Okay, makes sense to you? And this function just to use to reset the function. Not reset the function, reset the UID. So it is very simple. I think you can understand it And this function on open form, this open form just explained it to you. And the last function is to build the menu every time you open the spreadsheet. So that's why this on open function. So this function is going to run every time you refresh or open this spreadsheet. Okay, so just to create a menu and with two functions in this menu. Okay, all the code I explained in this code.js file, and the most painful and important stuff are in this file, this .js file. Okay, it's okay, a lot of lines here, but basically it's a structure, just a structure like this. Okay, here I just copy this. So this React create element, this method, I just stored it in this into this e function. You can call it this e is a method. So this e is like element. So you can use this e to create a new element. So you also can use the React create element to replace this e, because we need to repeat this method a lot of times. So that's why we have this const here. And if you go to my code, I also use this strategy, and I use this CE here. And here is a reference to the root. So this root is the only element in our HTML file. So it's a div with ID root. So we have a reference to this root. I'm going to, where is the JS file? Okay, here we have the root. We have this method here to create element. So for the first class here is going to be a form input class. So it's just a component. You can call it a component. So in this component, we'll have a label and have an input. So every time you see E here, it means React create element. So here you can, so it's just like React create element. So what kind of element is a label? Okay, so for this label, the second parameters here is going for the attribute for the element. So you just like this. Let me show you. Let me open the VS Code for you. So it's very similar to, let me try to create a new file. I hope you know some basic JavaScript. Let me try to create a new file in this folder. Okay. Simple HTML. So basically, it's just like this. So we have a label. So the first form input component is just going to be like this. So we have a label. This label, we're going to have a class name. So a class name will be a form item. So this form item, you should be able to find it in the CSS file. Okay, if we go to the CSS file. So this is the class name. Let me find it. Okay, here. This is formatting the class we have defined in this CSS file. And if we go to, so this is class name. And we also have a for. So this for is for the ID. So every form input, we're going to have ID properties. Have an ID property. So let me say for the first one, the ID we're going to be first name. So it's just like a first name. And this is the attribute for this label. The second parameters is the object. and with two element in this object. Okay, one is the class name, one is for there is a for here, and the third element, third parameter is the array. So in this array, we're going to have another stuff. It's a little complicated for me to explain this to you guys. I'm sorry about that. And so basically here we're going to add a label here. So this is not here. We have props here called label. So basically the label is just the description in this label. So it's just the text content in this label. So for this one, for this example, just the first name. And we also, so in this array, the first the first element is a label, is just the text content, and the second one is element, is element created by this React create function, create element function. Here we also it's just a nested item. So basically we nested an input here. So for this input, so as you can see here, the first parameter for this React create element is input, and the second parameters for this input components, we have a lot of attribute here. As you can see, we have ID, we have type, we have name, we have a key, we have value, we have a onChange function. So it basically is just a so we have ID like first name, and we have the type will be text, and we have the name will be first name, and we have the key is not a, this key is only for the React components. So in our HTML element we don't need it. So value will be empty, and we have onChange function here, onChange. We're going to equal to onChange. Okay. So this is a function just like this. So since we don't have any child element or text for this input, we just put a null here. So this is the input components. So other components are very similar. So once you understand this one, you should be able to understand the others. So it is very similar to the example to this one. Okay, it's just a little bit different. So as you can see here, just return button here, and here is the type of this element, and this here is attribute. Here we only have one attribute on click. So and the last one is the caption or the text content for this button. Okay, let's go back to our project. So once we have this form input, and we can use it in our where is my element? Okay, this is a form components. We can use the form input in our form components, and you can see here we just create a, if you check the line here, we have 4 form input here. So we have the type. If we have email, we have the email type. Here is ID. So here is a label. So this label will be show here for each of them. Okay, and we also have the key. Okay, and we have the function, this onChange function. This function is going to define here. I have this function defined in this class. We also have the value for each of them. So basically, once you created the input, so you can use it in another in a parent of components you'd like to use, and it's the same for the text area and it's the same for the button. Okay. So if we go to the text area, it's very similar structure and just a different attribute and just a different type of input of element you need to change. And this one is for button. As you can see here, we have a button here, and we wrap the button in a form item div. Okay, so this one is a main component in this application. So that's why here we have this constructor. If we go to, yes, this constructor, it's just a little bit complicated than the example because the example we only have one component. For our form, we have a lot of component, so we need to set a state for each input of each input in our form. So for the first name, last name, email, password, and comments. So for all the input, you need to define a state in this object, and if you need to modify the items, so basically once you add any new form input or text array input, you need to put their ID as the key and the value and the value. Basically, by default, we set the value to empty. Okay, if you have a default value, you can also set a default value here. So if you add a new, let me show you. Okay, so let's say we have to add a new password for password validation. So we just copied the password line here. So type password, no change. ID, let's try to rename it password validation. So password, we copy the ID and label, let's say validation and on change. And here the value we need to change to password validation. So once you use this password validation, you need to add this password validation to the status here. So password validation, let's just set it to empty. Okay, so now the setup in our script should be done. Let's save it, and you need to, so if you refresh this file, you will not see the password validation field because you need to republish your script. So then you are going to see it. But we also have option here. We can use this link for the development. So if you try to click this latest code, and in the end we have a dev here, that means we have a link for the development. So here we have a password validation here. So you add a new input, just simple like this. So as you can imagine, so you can add modify your form very easily. So once you build all the components, maybe you can build a radio button input or just something like the drop down, just like that. You can just build an element in React, and you can use it in the in your main component. Here is in the form. So once you add new element, you also need to modify the code in, because we have add new items, so you need to find a new place for this kind of things. So since you add a new items here, So we need to password validation. So the order is not a matter. So you can decide password validation. Let's save it, and you also need to modify this. So this we now have a new column. So it should be H. Okay. So let's try to run this test form. So password validation 123 validation. Let's try to submit. Success. Okay, as you can see here, for the first one, we don't have this validation. So this is the comment, and this is the second one we just added in our script. Now we have this password validation column here, and you can modify the script just like this. Okay, so the good thing about the React is it is very handy and very easy for you to handle the form post. So you can manage all the values in this state. So you can modify them very easily. Okay. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this to explain this to you, because it's not. I have to say honestly, I'm not very familiar with it, because I just got to start it, to learn it, and try to practice it in Google Apps Script, and also we have an onChange function, and we also have an onSubmit function. So this onSubmit function going to run. So once we click the button and to submit the form, this function we're going to run. Okay, basically it's going to run this save response function. We're going to save the states to our Google Sheet, because we have this save response function defined here, so we can run it from the server side. We need to use this Google script run function here, and we also have a success handler and a failure handler. So for this success handler, we're going to update the status for each kind of information, like the message. So if it's success, we're going to update the message to success. And so once we click the submit button, the message is saying submitting. So that's why you see this message here. And then we also have a flag here to a boolean value here to show message or not show the message. And for this disable, it's just used to disable the button. Okay, so it's true. That means the button is disabled. So once we successfully upload our data to the spreadsheet, we're going to update the message to success and disable the button and enable the button. So we pass the false value here, and show message also true. And if it's failed, we're going to show the message with an error message here, and also show the message, and we're going to enable the button. So we also need to disable this. Disable tend to false. Okay, so all the logic I explained, and except for the form, this form text and the form button here, as you can see, we build the H1 title, and we have a span here for subtitle. All the text you can modify here. So this is the from GS React is for the title. It's from GS React, and this is a sentence I've added for this menu, this subtitle, and for all these links, You can see here for the first link is my YouTube channel. You can check all the videos I've created for the Google Apps Script, and also I have my Twitter account here. You can visit and can follow me on Twitter. And if you have any questions, you also can pin me on Twitter. And the other two links is for Google Apps Script and the reactjs.org. Okay, that's why. So all the code are not, all the HTML elements are not built in the index.html file. So the components are all created through the React. So in this JS file, and with the power of React, we can build the element very easily, and we can handle all this kind of stuff very easily in React. And finally, once we have our form components created, so the last one is the form component, and with all the functions in this component. Once we build the components, we can render the form and put the form in this root. So if we can remember, this root is the root element with ID. Okay, with ID root in this .html file. So we just put the form in this div. So if you check the, let me try to check this. So here is the root, and you have all the components created by React. So you can see here we have a form here, and we have the form items. We have the title, we have subtitle, form items like first name, input. So this are not created directly in this index of, as you can see in this index HTML file, there is only one tag for this root. So all the codes are created with React. So that's the power of React. So it makes this, I don't know what to say. It's very interesting tool for me. And so I hope you can learn something from this video. This could be a very long video. I'm sorry for that. And anyway, thank you for your time, and keep learning. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.